So today we're going to talk about green manure crops. I've got this bed here that I tried out for the first time last autumn, and I had disastrous results. So I've left it and it's been growing weeds ever since. So this morning I've dug it over and now I'm going to rake it out and then sow my green manure crop. The green manure crop will take about 6 to 8 weeks to grow and it'll get up to about this high. I'm going to use mustard, and then when it's grown we're then going to cut it down, chop it up and return all that green growth into the soil, which will improve the soil structure. The roots will have broken up the soil further down and we will be returning all the nutrients that were in the mustard into the soil. And this morning I dug this over and left any old weeds sort of get killed off with the sun. And now I'm just going to level this out. It's very cost effective because you only need 5 grams per square metre, which is not very much. So it's just a matter of broadcasting the 5 grams on the ground like this, not too thick. So this is our patch of finely sown mustard seed, and the next thing to do is to rake it in lightly. Don't rake it in too much because it's very fine seed and you don't want to cover it over heavily. And in about 6 to 8 weeks this seed will have grown fully and will be in flower, and then you'll have to dig it in. Hi again. We're now 6 weeks on since I sowed my mustard crop, and you can see it's grown really well, nice and thick, and it's just coming into flower. So now I'm going to dig it in, and which will just mean I will chop it in half, and chop it in half probably again, and then dig it over and return all that foliage and root system into the ground. Today we're back in my vegetable garden and I've got along our local organic gardener Joanne to tell us a little bit more about organic gardening and how to use green manure crops. So very soon my zinnias are going to come out, but previously in here I've had in past years brassicas. So we'll just ask Joanne what we should be doing and which crops would be best for my garden.
Well, because you've already had brassicas in this area of garden, you would probably want to go with something like lupin. Lupin's in the legume family, so it would make up part of your crop rotation. And the lupin would also help to introduce nitrogen into the soil. Lupin introduces nitrogen to the soil through, as you can see, the nodules, and that is where the nitrogen comes into the soil.
My garden is raised, as you can see, but underneath is really heavy clay, so I'm hoping that the introduction of the green crop will help break up the clay underneath.
What happens when you're adding a green crop is it not only protects your soil structure and also the nutrients that are already in your soil, but also it adds nutrients through carbon. And that's done because you're turning in the green matter into the soil. And so that will help improve the soil structure as well as adding those nutrients that you want. You also have other green crops and they also do different types of nutrients introducing into the soil as well. So if you put something like mustard into the soil, it helps kill soil pathogens, so things like wireworm, nematodes. If you're doing crops in a greenhouse, it helps sterilise the soil. So mustard's quite a good crop for that. Obviously it's in the brassica family, so you need to think about your crop rotations. And then finally we've got the mixed green crop, and that's got a mix of the mustard, the oats and the lupin, and that's a good general purpose crop. It'll help introduce that organic matter, which is the carbon, into the soil. It'll help give you that soil cleansing ability, the nitrogen through the lupin, and the oats will help with the green matter. So that's quite a good general purpose crop to have into the soil if you've got any bare patches. And what it does is it suppresses any weeds. So if you've got a bare patch, then you won't have the opportunity for weeds to germinate as well.
And it's silly to leave your vegetable garden. If you're not going to use your vegetable garden over the winter, which some people don't, you should make it do something for you and improve your soil structure at the same time.
And one other thing, birds love the seeds. So it's a really good idea if you want to net your seeds until they germinate and then they leave them alone, because otherwise, especially for the mixed crop which has got the oats in it, and even the mustard, they will pick at it and you'll get a less of a coverage.
Okay, so you could put a netting on, sort of like I've got on my silver beet up there, just to make sure that the birds don't take them away.
It's a wonderful idea.
So Joanne, when would be the best time for me to sow my green crops?
Well, it's best to sow in autumn while it's still warm, before you have frosts. You can also sow in spring, but that is using different types of green crops for spring.
And if I've got a new garden, say, and I'm not quite ready to plant, and perhaps it's autumn, would it be a good idea to just sow a green crop right the way through so it's actually doing something beneficial for me all winter?
Yeah, that's a great idea. It'll help suppress the weeds and it'll also improve that soil structure and add the nutrients before you start planting in spring.
Oh, that'd be great. And so instead of seeing weeds through that new garden, I'd actually be thinking, oh yes, I'm doing something.
It's a great idea. Thank you and happy gardening.